Seen in business and politics, correspondent and guru, Vanessa Yurkevich is here. Welcome again to Big Picture. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. Why is it so hard to buy a home right now in America?
Well, it's a supply and demand issue. There is still intense demand coming off of the pandemic, and there is even less supply than there was 2 years ago. And what that does is push prices higher. And this couple was a perfect example of just the laborious process to find a home, settle, meaning settle not getting exactly what you want, and then having to put work into the home. That's extra money that they probably weren't accounting for.
Yeah, and they also said that they were absolutely sticking to a $500,000 budget. That's what they could afford. They ended up going $250,000 over, and it's a fixer-upper. I mean, I guess the question is, who can actually afford to buy a home now?
It's someone that has quite a bit of money in the bank, and it is potentially someone who has locked in a fixed rate mortgage, which means that they are not at the peril of the rising and falling of the market right now. We did a little math just to put it into perspective for folks.
So glad you did it.
Your team helped me out. But the average home price in America right now is $363,000 on average. This is for a home in America. That's what it costs on average. So in April of 2021, last year, the mortgage rate was 3.13%. So that's on average, you're paying about $1,247 a month. That's without taxes, HOA fees. That's just on the mortgage. Let's fast forward to where we are right now. The mortgage rate on that same priced home has risen to 4.72%. So now you're paying about $1,512 a month. So if you do the math, that's $265 more every month, about $3,000 more a year that you're paying for your mortgage. For some people, that may not move the needle, but for first-time home buyers who are really trying to grasp onto these attractive low mortgage rates, that could make a difference between buying a home and not, especially when we're seeing prices year over year up 20%. You are potentially getting priced out if you're really, really strapped for cash and you were just trying to get in at these great mortgage rates. Now you might be locked out.
Yeah, there seemed like there was almost this panicked feeling because the mortgage rates are historically low. And actually, what people may not know is they are still historically low, right? I think I remember my grandparents saying that it was like 20% interest.
Oh, yes.
Which I don't think any of us would even dare to buy. The Fed recently raised the interest rates for the first time since 2018. And we looked at this number. Has that affected demand, though? Because, like you said, people are rushing towards it. But will it eventually kind of make people go, okay, that's too high?
Yeah, I think it's the FOMO first and then the wait, hold on, let me wait this out. So the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates over the course of this year. They had been at basically 0% for 2 years during the pandemic. And that was to get people to spend money, to get people to take out mortgages and to buy homes. But then that created that buying frenzy. So now the Federal Reserve is trying to cool down spending. But one of the ways they do that is by raising interest rates. But of course, that affects mortgage rates. And that's why you're seeing the mortgage rates tick up ever so slowly. But what that does, unfortunately, is do what it's designed to do, stop people from spending. So folks may be looking and saying, well, wait a minute, I was interested in a 2-point, whatever mortgage rate over the course of the pandemic. Now it's 4.71. Sorry, I'm not doing it.
It's double. And as it goes up, perhaps demand will start to shift a little bit.
Yeah, and that's I think what people are hoping, that the housing market might settle a little bit. These crazy prices that are certainly not sustainable will start to come down just because there won't be so much pressure from buyers looking for homes.
We talked a little bit about what happened with the Fed in Dallas saying, it looks like there might be a bubble. No one likes to hear bubble, especially if you've already gotten into the market. What do you know about that? Do you see that happening potentially?
I'm not a betting lady. I don't love to bet or set predictions, but obviously there's concern because we're just seeing prices that are so out of touch with reality right now. And there's concern that obviously if you start seeing prices just keep growing, they burst. And then what you end up being left with is folks who have potentially overpaid for their homes and are paying potentially very high mortgage rates as it relates to where it was over the pandemic, not high historically. And folks may be kind of left saying, well, what am I doing? I'm going to take a loss on my home in a few years. And that's really troubling for people. And I know that a lot of folks in the real estate industry are watching this, not predicting it, but watching it, because we saw it happen in 2008, and that was devastating for so many people.
For so many families, but we're not in that same, from what I've been reading, I'm no expert, you're the expert, but from what I've been reading, we're not in that same place with what happened in 2008. That was significantly different, as I understand.
Yeah, because we're sort of tied to a little bit of inflation. That was like mortgage-backed rates.
Right.
There were banks involved. There were people being, given so much money to pay for their homes, and they didn't actually have the cash to support that. We're sort of looking at supply and demand and inflation. And the thing with inflation is it's always cyclical. Like, it can come down. We can see these prices come down. And I think for folks who are looking to buy homes, it's a little bit of a wait and see period. And you're doing the right thing. You're reading about it. I mean, every homeowner should be looking at everything: mortgage rates, interest rates, home prices, supply and demand, how long houses are sitting on the market, what's going on in their particular area. Renting, buying is a huge discussion. Yeah. So it's just educating yourself right now and what feels best for you and what your sort of wallet dictates.
Exactly. Your finances mean everything in this scenario. It's not even just mortgage prices that are going up. Rent prices, as you just talked about, have shot up to these unbelievable rates. For most people, they look at them and they think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And take a look at this. Look how high the rent has gone up. It is, for a lot of people, that's even something that they can't handle, and they have to have a roommate, or they have to figure out a different scenario, maybe stay home with the parents for a little bit longer. What is this, and how are people navigating this?
Rents are up a record 17% in the last year. I know that when my landlord came to me and said your rent is going up 7%, I was shocked. But I realized that's not even bad. A lot of people's rents are doubling because, remember, during the pandemic, people were fleeing cities, right? Now they're trying to draw people back into the metro areas. A lot of different landlords gave concessions, deep concessions, to get people in the door. And now you have young millennials, people on fixed incomes who were saying, oh, wow, I'm getting this great apartment for X cost. And now you're getting an email from your landlord saying, I'm sorry, inflation, we're back to normal times, if not higher than normal times. And now you have to pay double. And this is creating an affordability crisis in the housing market for a lot of people. I mean, just think about families who are on a fixed income and their wages are rising, but not at the same rate as inflation or the 17% in rent for most people. And, people might say, okay, well, maybe you should buy. Well, but then if you're buying, you need to have 20% down. You need to be tapped into those rising mortgage rates. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of other options.
There's not a lot of wiggle room.
Stuck. You're sort of stuck, and you have to pay it, because if you don't want to pay $2,000 on your apartment, if you look over here, another apartment is maybe $3,000. Right. There's just not a lot of options for folks, and it's stressing people out.
Completely. You've got some new information just this morning for us on the housing market. What's it telling us?
Right. So we got the CPI report. That's the Consumer Price Index, which comes out every month, and it sort of sets the tone for where we are with inflation. So inflation in just the last month rose 1.2%. We're now at a year-over-year inflation of 8.5%. That is very steep. And then when you look at shelter, that's housing, up 0.5% in the last month, up 5% in the last year. That may not sound like a lot, but that is actually, shelter is the biggest share of expense for people. It's about 2/3 of overall costs if you look at this CPI report in totality. And then just want to bring to your attention energy costs. I couldn't believe it. Up 11% in the last month, 32% in the last year. Energy is what we use to heat our homes, electricity. So you're talking about rents going up, home prices going up, and then all of the things you need in order to heat your home, to keep your lights on, that is going up too. So it's just a lot of financial pressure on folks right now, and people are frustrated. They're wondering when this is going to end.
You can actually see that in the numbers when it comes to the president and
approval
ratings. And you can understand that people are like, I'm not better off. Things are getting worse.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense? Is there a city that is particularly hard hit when it comes to the price of housing, the price of, because once you get the house, if it's a fixer-upper, the cost of fixing it up is extraordinarily high now too.
Yeah, materials, construction materials up 24% in just the last year. But if you look at the CPI report, it reveals that Tampa has the highest rate of inflation of any metro area in the country right now, 10.2%. That's above the 8.5% sort of nationally. And I actually visited Tampa not too long ago. They had a very high rate of inflation a few months ago. And what I was seeing was that this was an area that a ton of people were moving to. Also, tons of housing expansion. People were thinking, oh, I'm going to move there. I'm going to get my new home. Now
it's inexpensive. I mean, Florida and Tampa and that side of Florida is known to be a lovely place because you can be on the water. It is fairly inexpensive. And what you're saying is people are like, yeah, we know. So they're flocked there. And now?
Right. And now?
Inflation's at 10%?
10.2%. Just got the numbers this morning. And that is more than an area like Los Angeles or New York City, where costs are already very high. It's just the extreme growth, the extreme sort of push of prices. That's why you're seeing that 10.2%. And folks are I've spoken to folks there. They're feeling it. Small business owners are feeling it. I mean,
it's almost an impossible scenario. At some point, it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
We hope. I mean, that's what we hope. That's why the Federal Reserve is getting involved.
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich, thank you so much for bringing that to us. Appreciate it.